What I'm going to do right now, because I'm in such a chipper mood, is I'm going to dramatically, if our web stream is working, put my feet up on the table. Now I'm going to put them off the table because I might get in trouble, seeing as we're not allowed to, like, put anything in here that might get the equipment dirty. We're not allowed to have drinks in here anymore, water, coffee. People are probably thrilled about the fact that I can't have any coffee. Paul, get to the point. Okay, I'm thrilled that the Seahawks brought back Carlos Dunlap. This is something that makes me feel just a whole lot more relieved about the Seahawks going through the rest of this offseason. Pete Carroll is right to call me a worrier. Danny in the last segment is right to call me a worrier. I was a little concerned about some of the things that were taking place, not to the point where I thought all of a sudden the Seahawks were about to fall off a cliff or anything like that. But if you take a look at the offseason to this point, they earlier yesterday decided that Jarran Reed and them not going to be a thing going forward. More on that in a moment. But also earlier this offseason, they set a price for Shaquill Griffin that they weren't going to go over. But at least from the sound of things, they tried to get back in the mix to bring back Shaquill Griffin before he eventually signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Carlos Dunlap, though, is back. I want to give John Schneider a whole lot of credit and high five because he not only was able to get this guy who made a huge impact on the defense last year for a 7th-round pick in B.J. Finney, who really was a dead weight for you this past season. He also correctly gauged the market, saw that a pass rusher probably wasn't going to be getting a whole lot, and was able to bring Carlos Dunlap back on a reasonable 2-year, $16.6 million deal. Pete Carroll, I think, put it best last year, the kind of impact that Carlos Dunlap has. He makes players around him better.
I thought Clint did a great job challenging him on the sidelines to go ahead and bring it, and when we needed it most, he really came through in a big way. I haven't seen the sack that he got. I don't know what it looks like, but guys were raving about it. But he's a powerful man, and his factor helps the other guys, and that's one of those cases where a good player helps other guys play better. He's a real good factor for us.
It's such a perfect way to describe him, and honestly, if you just want to take a look at the big picture of this team last year, before they had Carlos Dunlap, worst defense in the NFL. Historically bad defense. With Carlos Dunlap, their pass rush went from being one of the worst in the NFL to being top 10, at least based off of sack numbers. Now, Jamal Adams being healthy also played a role there, but even with Carlos Dunlap playing just 58% of the snaps last season, Dunlap and that defense were completely different. And I'm just relieved that this is taken care of. There was a part of me who just used to, at this point in time, looking at guys that first the Houston Texans and then the Seattle Seahawks had signed under contract, but you don't know what's going to happen with them going forward. I'm talking about Jadeveon Clowney, of course. I thought there might be a chance that the remainder of this offseason was, is Carlos Dunlap coming back? Whoa, what's going on with Carlos Dunlap? What's going on here? Instead, we don't have to have that conversation anymore. Phew. But the Seahawks did take an L yesterday in the offseason. Jarran Reed, the release of him, it is the first loss of the summer for John Schneider, for Pete Carroll, and the Seahawks. I think with Shaquill Griffin moving elsewhere, that's a guy who I feel like what he was getting from Jacksonville is something that he wasn't worth. He's a good player. Is he a great player? Jacksonville's betting on him becoming a great player there. Reed has always been a really frustrating watch for me, and I didn't understand why Seattle gave him the contract extension that they did after the 2019 season, where he's not only suspended the first 6 games of the year, and he dealt with an ankle injury, I think, the remainder of the season, but he only had, 2.5 sacks or so. I just thought it was surprising that they gave him that extension. And I looked at him and thought to myself going into this year, yeah, you're not going to pay him $13.5 million if Carlos Dunlap was someone that you cut after he had a salary cap hit going into this year of $14 million. There's no way. There's no way that you would keep Jarran Reed around. But in the case of Jarran Reed, who I look at and I think, yeah, inconsistent, it's still a loss to lose him.